Okay, everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of the Grounded Seeker podcast. My name is Sam. In this episode, I want to talk about some key aspects to how the ego co-ops awakening to hide from life. It does this in sneaky ways that you may not have been aware of, and I hope that this episode, and I'm confident this episode, will give you some more context on what might be going on for you. As to how you address that core sense of restlessness in your psyche as it relates to painful experiences in daily life, things like social anxiety when you're trying to wake up, things like feeling like a failure, things like just having a core defect, something really wrong about you or something like that. That awakening just doesn't seem to be getting to, and you're hoping that it will. You're holding out for that, right? We'll also do a guided meditation later on to really put this stuff into practice in the episode, so gear yourself up for that. It's very experiential. I'm confident this episode will give you a lot of valuable information, so enjoy. Man, I remember 4 years ago, 3 years ago, doing self-inquiry. Who am I? Who am I? Trying to figure out the true nature of who and what I am in this life, right? Oh boy. I remember the motivation behind that, which I want to speak to, and I'm going to unpack deeply in this podcast and really open your heart up to a different angle about this whole awakening thing. I remember there was a sense of desperation tone behind that, a sense of deep primordial restlessness at the core of my heart that really wanted to wake up to its true core identity with the added hidden agenda that if I just do that, then that deep core restlessness will alleviate itself. And that deep core restlessness showed up in different ways in life. Honestly, a lot of it was just this ongoing dis-ease. So as I meditated in consciousness, in resting my attention into awareness more, that paved way for more of the unconscious material to arise into experience. So the system felt deeply unsettled. And what I did then was I would look for meditation teachings from non-dual teachers online or reading books that would continue to solidify that bias that if I just keep waking up, that confirmation bias I had, if I just keep waking up, that deep restlessness will go away. If I just sit in presence long enough, all of that material will just dissolve. And there was a hidden background belief that it would all dissolve. And then I would have this big, sort of breakthrough experience where a whole new way of perceiving the world kicked into gear. That again liberated that deep core restlessness that was showing up as discomfort in daily life, showing up as social anxiety, feeling like a failure, showing up as not being capable, isolating from others, and then justifying that as a spiritual endeavor, self-sabotaging on projects. And then there would be that sort of clinging to that non-dual teaching. Oh, okay, just keep resting as awareness. Right, so there's nothing wrong with resting as awareness. There's absolutely nothing wrong. And you know what? It couldn't have been any other way for me. So if you're listening to this and you're resonating, I'm not saying to cut that practice out. I made an episode 2 of the podcast where I mentioned true self-recognition is critical for radical healing. You could check out episode 2, which it is. but it gets deeper. So, I would encourage people, if you're practicing in this way for awakening, for that first initial shift, or if you've already had that initial shift and you're sort of continuing to try to deepen in presence, I think that's really worthwhile. Let that teach you. We have to balance that understanding of our true nature with the other aspects that I want to get into. So I would encourage you, keep going down that path. Especially if that's where your heart's aligned and that's on fire in your heart. Never distrust your own instinct. If you're aligning to that way of practice, keep going that way. Because I don't regret it. Although I have learned some more things since then, which I would hesitate to go down that path that I went down initially if I knew the things I know now. But we have to trust ourselves. It's sort of like if you have a parent, maybe you remember when you're a teenager and your parents give you unsolicited advice or something, where they say, son, you should invest in stocks. And you're like, yeah, Dad, but I just want to play Minecraft, or I just want to play Diablo 2 or Oblivion or Skyrim. Fuck off. Or RuneScape. Fun fact, I used to play a lot of RuneScape and PUBG and these sorts of games. I was a big time gamer. Got a purple party hat on RuneScape. Maybe some of you don't even know what the hell those games are, and that's okay. Just a little insight into my life. Okay, so trying to transcend, trying to use what my mind was doing at that time was it was trying to use awareness-based teachings, awareness-based practices to go beyond that deep core restlessness that, as I mentioned, was showing up as social anxiety, as feeling like a failure, as all these things. And this fundamental restlessness in well-being. And the strategy that I ultimately culminated on was, okay, so now I'm just going to feel all of that stuff. So initially I went from focusing more on trying to rest as awareness to then trying to feel the sensations of what was arising for me, with the understanding and the pointing that simply feeling was enough. Just keep feeling the sensation. And then that's all that's required. Just feel. I was told. It's okay, I'll just feel. And then, I'd go out into daily life. Well, I would get my reprieve, my short reprieve from meditating in my room, where I could regulate my system a little bit, which is all good. And then I would get up and go about daily life, and then walk into certain situations that would trigger me significantly. And then, okay, the pointing, just feel. All right, I'll just feel. And meanwhile, I'm feeling this intense, frozen energy in the system. It's all right, I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling this frozen energy, man. And the background, then my mind's also saying, when's it going to go away? All right, I'm feeling it. I'm doing what the teachers are saying. I'm feeling it. Just resting in sensation. Noticing my true nature as best I can. But ultimately, it was very painful, right? So that there was always that I got really good at having very exceptionally strong nervous system capacity by being able to just feel and being in the body, feeling these things in a very deep way. And again, this is a really good skill to have. It's not like I'm critiquing that as a bad thing. As I keep alluding to, there are just deeper layers to it that have continued to unfold for me. So if you're doing these things, or if you're practicing in this way, I think that's excellent. Ultimately, we're just trying to do our best. We're just trying to not suffer, right? So I'm not here to shoot that down. But the more that I have developed in this practice, the more that I've come to realize that I was using both that quality of resting as awareness, as well as just feeling sensation as my core practice, as a subtle way to deviate and distract myself from feeling and being seen in my deepest pain. See, because from a young age, we learn certain schemas about ourselves. A schema is a sort of a core belief we learn about ourselves. Certain coping strategies that can be maladaptive. From what I understand, this is quite well documented. There are 18 maladaptive schemas. For example, one of them could be something like failure. That's a maladaptive schema. So at a young age, perhaps we were engaging in some sort of an activity where we went out to help our father with a task, and our father either overtly grabbed us and said, "Hey son, you're doing a shit job here. Go away," right? So a pretty significant trauma response from that. Or it could have just been like we're helping out help him do the job or something, and he's alluding to us that we're just making small, snarky remarks at how we're not competent, and he is. Or just lack of attunement in a strong way that we internalize as, I can't get the job done. I'm a failure. So it may not be the intensity of the trauma response where we're blatantly sort of like maybe we're hit or something for making a mistake where we then internalize it. It could just be a lack of attunement where we internalized at a young age that, yeah, you know what, I'm a failure. Because if I'm a failure, that schema actually protects me from feeling the painful emotions of shame or discomfort. It's much easier and safer to feel something like sadness and an energy of getting away than it is to feel those underlying emotions, the things that we needed to build the schema upon. So we can see in this experience that maybe in this example, right, we develop this core schema of shame. And I'm going to relate this to awakening and how we use this to co-opt awakening. This core feeling of shame, deep repressed emotional state, and then we experience an added layer of emotionality on top of that so that we don't have to feel that shame. So there's a buried emotion of something like humiliation, and then on top of that, as a coping strategy, we develop an identity of being a failure, which shows up as energy in the body as maybe something like sadness and getaway energy. So what we can do with spirituality and with awakening-based teachings is we can bypass that deeper layer of humiliation. We can rest as awareness, and then it might bring up that identity of being a failure where we feel the sadness and the getaway, but we don't feel the humiliation. And it remains buried until we have and take an active inquiry approach to investigate that experience full on. In AEDP therapy, accelerated experiential dynamic psychotherapy, which is a modality, they call this the core affect. The core affect would be the sensation of humiliation that we experience. That's the core emotion. And then there is also these protectors that come online as well, which would be the sadness and the getaway energy. Those are the protectors, right? So what we tend to do with spirituality is an awakening and resting as sensation is we're in the business of sitting with those protectors. We only sit with the protectors. So we just feel, we receive that non-dual teaching of just feeling, but we sit with the protectors, right? But we don't get to the buried stuff. It's much safer, and we get safety and love when we stay with the protectors. But again, we avoid the buried stuff. So can you see how meditation of something like resting as awareness in the solitude of your own home with this drive to wake up becomes this surrogate to stay safe from the triggers and to truly meet ourselves in our deepest pain. Even just feeling. So again, I don't want to underestimate the importance of being able to feel and the ability to connect to our true self. It's like no joke that those are the really powerful skill sets when we're embodying and we're connecting to our true self. Those are profound things. But we also need to bring in some more active inquiry to uncover the core affect emotion, the core places in our psyche that have been lying dormant. In a previous episode, I talked about why we can't surrender, why it's so difficult to just surrender in our practice. And I believe it's because when we go to just surrender, like just let go and let be into life, like we receive that non-dual teaching, then we encounter these protective emotions. What it does, it creates this very coagulated experience of emotion. Because essentially what's happening is we're encountering a situation, like let's use that same example, where we walk into a situation where our father is, or someone who represents our father's energy. So it could be someone like a boss, or it could be someone like a spiritual teacher as well. We walk into that situation, and then that same program boots up, right? And we're essentially underneath, deep down, what we're actually feeling is a sense of humiliation. That's the core affect emotion, but then it gets intermixed. Like I've heard it described as if we're drinking water, but let's just imagine instead of drinking water, for a period of time, we put in this little bit of like bitter tasting additive to the water. And when we drink the water, over time, the more that we keep drinking the water, we become adverse. We don't like drinking water because it's got that bitter taste in it. So the initial water was just the pure emotion, the pure free-flowing emotion of humiliation. But then we add in this bitter taste over time, which is the coping strategy, the defenders. So again, so feeling like we need to get away, and sadness. And then it gets to the point where whenever we go into that experience of being in the Father's energy, instead of just feeling the pure water, the pure humiliation, we're feeling this bitter taste of humiliation plus sadness plus get away. And it tastes quite bad. So we want to get to those protectors and we want to meet them, attune to them, soften them away in such that the pure emotion of humiliation can be experienced fully in a safe way and integrated at an experiential embodied level, right? So not just cognitively looking at them, but we have to go into the core emotions, actually feel the emotions in direct experience. So basically what I'm trying to say is even if we're engaging with life and we're working through these triggers, so for example, we're walking out into daily life and we're practicing resting as awareness and being with sensation and these sorts of practices, which are very good. But we're working with the surface level triggers, that we're working with the tip of the iceberg there. And in that process, we still avoid the most buried and painful aspects of ourselves. And we do this subconsciously because the surface level stuff that's driving our lives is what we're attuning to rather than the more buried stuff. And we're hoping that we can use awareness here to somehow just transcend all of that buried stuff so that it will just go away. It will just evaporate, right? And you know what? We might even want to be looking at the subconscious because I bet a lot of you practicing this or listening to my sort of stuff, you're pretty earnest, you're non-dual seekers, you're serious spiritual practitioners. You really care about the things that I care about, like radical truth, open-hearted love and truth, right? These are the things that I care about and value most dearly. So that means seeing through everything that's creating suffering in this lifetime to ourselves and others so that we can show up as benevolent, authentic, and regulated in the world. So I know a lot of you actually probably want to do that. Just like I always wanted to do that 3 to 4 years ago, but we just don't know how. We've never been shown. Fuck, man, like we've never been shown what it means to do that in a safe way. God, and what I've come to know is like, I wish I had these experiences where I had been fully seen in my pain, like I have been experiencing more and more lately. I'll tell you a story. I went to Angelo DeLulo's Kentucky retreat. Angelo DeLulo's Kentucky retreat, his in-person retreat. And this was a 3-day retreat. I can't remember, 2 or 3 days. And, we had all the typical non-dual teachers there. There was Angelo DeLulo himself, people like Violet Synergy, Josh Putnam, Alma was there, a whole bunch of other people in that sphere, Christina Command, etc., etc. And there was the typical non-dual practices that were going on, like the attunement to awareness, the deepening in presence, guided meditations on non-dual awareness, in the seen, only the seen, in the heard, only the heard. But one of the beautiful things that they did was Angelo brought in the Inside Circle crew. Now, for those of you who don't know, Inside Circle are a group of gentlemen from Folsom State Prison who are just amazing guys. James McCleary, Aaron, Rick, and Eldra Jackson the third. These guys were all at the retreat, and what they did was they took each group in groups of 25 each day to go to do some intensive shadow work processing, essentially, right? Now, I'm not going to disclose what I saw, but I'm going to disclose what I got out of that experience, because confidentiality is key with these sorts of spaces. We need to protect and hold these experiences very safely in our hearts, and not just go blabbing about, oh, so-and-so did this process and they felt this way about it. It was so cool to watch. It's like, no, man. So I want to respect that confidentiality. I remember walking into that space, sitting in the circle. It's very quiet. And James, Aaron, Rick, Eldra, sit down. And immediately you can feel the safety in the room. You feel the energetics. We've got 25 serious spiritual seekers who have come to an in-person retreat with Angelo at Angelo's retreat in Kentucky. So these aren't just, half-assing spiritual seekers. These people are really earnest about this whole process. And immediately from the retreat environment, you feel a shift in energy where the system just felt safer in that silence sitting. Where Eldra, James then invited themselves to be and facilitate the space. Straight away, we got straight into it. The masks came off. And I saw amazing spiritual practitioners step into their authenticity and truth and take that mask off in deeper ways and get real. And I've never been to a opera or anything like that, but I would imagine I would equate it to the emotional work equivalent of like an orchestrated opera, that watching those 4 guys, Rick, James, Eldra, Aaron, work together to get to the core wound that people were experiencing was like watching a magic show, right? And then as it comes to me, as the circle's coming around to me, actually, just before I did my process, we had a lunch break, so I had this like long delay of waiting before it was my turn to do my process. And anyway, I got back in that room, and I was terrified. I knew it's where I wanted to go in my heart. I knew I wanted to go all the way in my heart with these sorts of guys, because this is a wonderful opportunity to take off that mask and really get to the core of what's real for me. And it got to my turn, and I felt deeply afraid, 25 serious spiritual seekers, some of my friends there, these guys, all attention on me, feeling this fear. But, I only care about truth and love. So straight away, it was just a matter of, I feel a lot of fear right now. I don't even want to look at anyone right now. That's how I feel in this space. And having straight away, those guys were right there with me. The key thing is attunement, being fully seen to be exactly what I am. Truly being seen by somebody. Not only somebody, a whole group of people, to be seen and witnessed in my deepest. And that's why confidentiality is so important. What happens in this circle stays in this circle. Now, I'm happy to share about my experience because that's me, that's on me. But what unfolded in that process of being fully witnessed in exactly what I was an emotional catharsis and deep core wound extraction that went for about 20 minutes. That was probably the most profound, energetic experience that I've experienced in a very long time. That experience of feeling safe, the sense that wherever you need to go, I'm going to go all the way with you. No ifs, buts, or maybes. Let's free fall together, brother. That sense of being deeply attuned to, like they're noticing subtle expressions in my experience and they care about that deeply. That feeling of love, like they have a sense of ferocity behind them, but they also have a deep open heart to help get me to where I needed to go. And also just expressions of joy and being able to be put up on a chair at the end of the process and be celebrated for the work that I did. And to have that encouragement that I'm supported, that there are spaces like this moving forward where I can continue to come back to that home base of safety whenever I need to. Right? So that's the sort of condition that this work precipitates. And that's what I believe, what I've come to realize is what I deeply wanted 4 years ago. Right? So coming back from that story, I believe many of us on this path probably want to do that work. Or maybe when you were listening to me describe that experience, that scared the shit out of you. To do something like that, to do deep work like that in front of a group of people, that's terrifying. I get it. That would have terrified the hell out of me 3 or 4 years ago. And I might even be feeling this sense of squirminess in my experience. Like, oh God, that's where I've got to go. Man. The thing is that it doesn't actually have to be scary. It really doesn't have to be scary. Although that's the trick of the mind. That's what the schemas do, right? That's what those protectors do that we learn at a young age. So I've got to feel that sadness and sense of needing to get away because, man, that is protecting me. And that is so scary to think that I would have to feel that deeper layer of humiliation and be seen and witnessed in that. So for some people, that might be, anger. Showing anger is absolutely terrifying, as it has been for me, repressing anger. So as a result, putting on a protective mask of being nice and spiritual and loving and, I don't rock the boat sort of thing, which continues to unwind more and more. So I think we want to go to these places. Some part of us, if we're oriented to truth and love, really wants everything to be brought to light, but it feels so scary to do that. It's like, where do we even go to create that space? Like I've worked with clients who, some of the things they've said, experiencing really intense nervousness and social anxiety or something like that, or sense of numbness and apprehension to go into a call with me. And I relate to that because I've fucking been through it and I know it's hard. But it's like, once we really allow ourselves to be witnessed in that and just know that like everything that you're experiencing is truly okay. Yeah, even that squirmy sense of he's going to see me. He's going to see something really terrifying in me. I've seen clients do that. And then as soon as they are able to acknowledge that, there's just a sense of, man, that's a relief that I can just let that out there. That sense of like, oh, I'm afraid he's going to see that part of me, that one part of me that is really gross and disgusting and horrible or something. That's what we feel. That's what the schemas feel like, right? And as soon as we feel it, it's like, and just acknowledge it. Oh, wow, isn't that interesting? It really wasn't that bad. And in that process of attunement, of really being seen in our pain, I think rather than trying to meditate it all away, well, that's what I was really looking for. So I'm not denying that pursuit of awakening. I'm not denying that at all. I think it's wonderful. But I know now that what I really wanted was to be seen in my pain and to know that I am not broken, by having others in a safe space acknowledge that. Now, not all spaces are safe. So it's not just to go and say, okay, I'm just going to unload my deepest pain onto Joe Schmo down the street or something. You really have to trust yourself, and you really have to feel that it's okay to open up to these parts as well. So the environment does matter initially, to where we can then internalize a lot of this work on ourselves. And I'm going to show you a process, a guided meditation, and just a little bit on how we might do that. But ultimately, what it feels like is we're too scared of the implications of what it might look like to find ourselves in that unknown of expressing something that is deep, the core affect emotion, that really deep unconscious emotion that we've stuffed down over many, many years. And when we really experience firsthand what it's like to be in that environment where it's safe, we're attuned to, we're loved, they've got us all the way, and we're actually really witnessed in that, in our core affect emotion, whether it's anger, humiliation, whatever it is, then we can decondition that stuff. And resting as awareness and being with sensation will not get us to that point. Until then, we're just going to keep resting into the superficial stuff rather than getting into the deeper roots of our experience. So it takes a bit more of an active inquiry rather than just surrendering, where we can have this balance between surrendering to life, but also having a bit of intention there as well. Sometimes we just have to be really seen in our pain. So what's your pain? What's that thing that you're deeply afraid to show to yourself and to others? There it is. Just listen for it. Let it bubble up from your unconscious. Maybe it's just one thing, that first thing that comes up. What's that deep thing? Maybe it's an emotion. Maybe it's an experience. Maybe it's a mental image of you in childhood. That thing that's always been there. What is that thing for you? I want to drop into a guided meditation here. So if you're driving, make sure you stop. Make sure you give this your full attention if you can. If you're at work, maybe you can take a restroom break for a little bit here, 10 minutes. And if you're listening to this, I encourage you just to give it a go. Hold that pain, that core pain of yours, that sensation, whatever it is. And just breathe. Just feel the weight of your body. Soften into your chair. Now just imagine you're falling off the back of a boat into water that's the perfect temperature for your body. It's just supporting your body. And you're just drifting downward with infinite lung capacity, very comfortable in that perfect water, drifting downward. And you can just keep letting go more and more, where you feel more and more supported by that water, knowing that it's completely safe. So you can just let go fully into that water, just drifting down. Drifting down. Now I just want you to imagine a safe space in your experience. Maybe you can think up the perfect place where you would just feel completely safe. The dream space. Letting go of any non-dual doubts about how this might be, using too much effort or intention or anything like that. Hold that core pain. Keep bringing that up gently if you can. Letting your body drift down in the ocean, imagining that space. Now I want you to wave your magic wand a little bit, and we're going to imagine some parents, not your real parents, but parents who are the perfect ideal parent. This parent is capable of giving you exactly what you need. So maybe you can start with the mother. What does she look like? How does she posture herself in relation to that core pain that you're feeling? What's her face look like? What's she wearing? Don't worry too much if you can't see her face. Maybe you just get the sense of what she feels like in your experience. Just allow yourself to be with that. Again, she's perfect, effortlessly perfect. She has everything that you could possibly ever need. She's not going anywhere, ever. Just imagine her entering the space. Is she sitting next to you? Does she have her arm around your back? Does she have her hand on your heart? What is she doing? Just play around with where you want to position her in this ideal landscape that you're in right now. Now imagine a father figure. Now for some of us this might be difficult, but again, let's just use our magic wand if we had the perfect capacity to do this. Just waving your magic wand. What does a perfect father figure look like? In this situation where you're feeling this pain, what's he doing? What's he look like? What's he wearing? And where is he positioned in this space that you're at? Is he sitting down next to you? And also imagine that this ideal father figure and this ideal mother figure, wherever they're positioned, are very supportive of one another. They collaborate very effectively. There's a sense that they're working as a team, a beautiful, supportive team, in such a way that you are completely safe and you are also the most important thing in the whole universe toward these ideal parents. See if you can feel in your body the sense of safety that that creates wherever they're positioned, and you can continue to move around and shift the composition of this imagination to whatever it is that you need. Only you know what you need. So in this space, you feel completely safe with them, with you. The environment and these ideal parents completely have your back. as you feel that core pain that you're experiencing. And you can just bring that up gently, and they're supporting you with it. And now just imagine that they're completely attuned to you, in just the way that you need right now. They're so deeply curious about you, and they're tracking every little micro expression that you have in your experience in relation to this core pain that you're feeling. They're right there with you at every step, at every emotional twist. Because they're ideal parents, if you need space, they'll give you space. They're so deeply attuned to you that they know exactly what you need to liberate as much love in your experience as possible. Giving you exactly what you need. If you feel feelings of sadness, they're immediately attuning to these changes in your expression and giving you exactly what you need. Or if you're angry, they're attuning to that as well. And just imagine them also giving you extremely valuable love and nourishment, however that looks like for you. Maybe they're touching your body where it feels tight with a gentleness. Or maybe they're modeling that it's okay to express the emotion that you're feeling. They know exactly how to love you in the way that you need. They know exactly how to give you that nourishment. With that core pain that you're experiencing. Just let yourself feel that. Play around with that arrangement of how they're positioning themselves to where you get it to where just where you need it. Now let's also imagine, you can let that little scene fade there, and just imagine that these loving parents, both of them, are so proud of you. The very fact that you exist in their lives is such a joy to them. They might even appear to you to be smiling, celebrating your existence from time to time, however you position them in this ideal space. The very fact that you exist as you are in this experience, it's just absolutely wonderful for them. They're celebrating all the little things that you do, encouraging you to be your best self, your most authentic self. Consistently. These parents are able to do this very consistently, without fail, ever. These ideal parents. Now it's also valuable here to imagine that these parents are equally available to you to support you as you go out into daily life. These ideal parents are so attuned to you and willing to provide you that support that you need to do scary and novel things in your life. Whether it's a new job, whether it's a new creative task, project, taking that next step in your life that you know you need to take, they're right there with you with exactly what you need to support you in this ideal landscape, these ideal parents. Only you know what you need, but they give it to you unapologetically, immediately as you need. As soon as you need it, they're right there, willing to give it to you with all of their hearts. Just notice what that feels like in the body. Notice what this whole process is doing to your mental state as you're fully attuned to, as you feel safe, as you feel loved, as you feel that you're a celebration. Your existence is a celebration, and that you're supported fully by these ideal parents. Notice the effect on your nervous system. And then we'll gently come out of that meditation when you're ready. So that can be very emotional. Some of us didn't have parents like that, or our parents did the best that they could, but sometimes we missed out on some of these core things quite regularly. Sometimes we don't even realize how much we missed out on. And when we attune to these places in our experience, we can unlock those forgotten parts of us that we didn't even know that we were missing. I've come to realize that a lot of my initial spiritual pursuits were motivated by this lack. I was missing various aspects of this in my life. Whether it was my pain not being accurately and fully attuned to in a deep way. And I know my mum listens to these podcasts, so it's just a matter, it's not a critique. No one's perfect with this, right? No one's perfect. But what we can do with imagination in this landscape is we can give ourselves those subtle things that we didn't know how to express, that we didn't know we needed at that time, that our parents were through their upbringing and their parents' upbringing, they weren't able to receive and therefore transmit to us. And what I've come to realize is that that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted with awakening and spirituality. I wanted to be fully myself, to know that all these icky parts of me aren't icky, and that they can actually fully be witnessed and loved and experienced and integrated. That's what I was looking for. So while awakening has been very valuable in the sense of the recognition of my true self, what I care about is that integration, that authenticity, that open-heartedness, that fluidity, that connectedness, that rooted sense of self that's grounded, that knows its value, that knows who and what it is, that can show up with love and connection. Not to transcend it all. I thought that's what I wanted. So, what do you want? What was the effect of that guided meditation on your experience? What did you notice? Again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but attuning to these places is when I began to realize through processes like I went through at that Kentucky retreat and through men's work earlier on and circle work and being seen at deeper and deeper levels, right? That's when I began to realize when my heart was ready for it. That's what I really wanted. And there's a whole nother conversation to be said. Maybe I'll do a future episode on this, on the avoidant attachment style that is scared of intimacy, because at a young age, it was deemed unvaluable or not good or bad to show emotions. So overtly, this may have been dismissed and palmed off, or subliminally, where it was subtly dismissed, where parents didn't know how to attune to our emotional state in an effective way. We don't get that accurate attunement. Then we miss out on these sorts of things. And then we create all sorts of strategies to not feel these parts of ourselves, these schemas that develop in early childhood. So we might avoid something like this sort of work, like being fully seen like the plague. So it's just a matter of attuning to where you're at. So maybe you could continue to do those sorts of visualizations as a start, or maybe you could take that bold step to seek help. And then pretty quickly, you'll realize, if you're with a facilitator and somebody that you really trust, that it's really not that scary. It seems to be the case that people who have that avoidant attachment style initially are apprehensive to do the work, but once they're in and doing the work, they actually realize, and they become very loyal to the process when they realize that it can actually be really quite relieving and freeing to continue to show up, do the work, process, get to the core, get to what's real. So yeah, guys, I hope you found this helpful in some way. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you drop a comment, leave a like on the video. It helps it out in the algorithm, and share it with friends you think might benefit from it. And I'm also going to be doing a 90-day program soon with this sort of stuff in mind. So if you're interested, make sure you sign up to the newsletter in the comment in the description of this video. That'll be the best way to hear about it and get on the early notice about when it gets launched. But yeah, otherwise, much love to you. Have a great day.